Let's talk a little bit more about some of the key moments from today's earlier testimony. Joining us now, trial consultant Richard Gabriel. Richard, thanks so much for joining us. Court was dramatic right from the start today, with Judge Merchan finding the former president in contempt for violating the gag order once again for a 10th time. He imposed another $1,000 fine on Trump and even threatened to send him to jail if the violations continue. So first of all, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, it's this huge struggle. I mean, Donald Trump has consistently said that he does not even think he should be curtailed in any way of saying about anything. And the truth is, Donald Trump has been pushing the boundaries about whether he even recognizes the rule of law. He feels somewhat accurately that he is in contempt of the court. So I think it's an interesting dynamic here where the defendant, which most defendants obviously come into court with some of this deference to the authority of the court, Donald Trump doesn't feel that at all. So it's this struggle. And I think it really is going to play out depending upon whether he gets on the stand to testify.
The Trump Organization controller, the accountant Jeff McConney, explained the nuts and bolts of that $420,000 in payments to Michael Cohen, but he also testified that Trump didn't ask him directly to arrange those alleged reimbursements. How is the jury likely to respond to that?
Well, this is really the piece by piece, brick by brick, chain by chain, kind of an exciting Al Capone building of a case, in which they're really just sort of linking everything together here. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle where they're just trying to put pieces together to really create a picture for the jury. I think there's clearly a theme that the prosecution is going for, which is Trump is involved. He has knowledge about everything. He has control over everything. And I think obviously the defense is trying to lay a foundation to saying, look, this is during the middle of the campaign, and this is not really what he's focused on at all. And I think one of the key pieces today also was that there was a lot of chaos in the 2017 period when these recordings are made. And so that he really isn't aware of this. But the problem here is that Trump is very controlling, and you have two financial people on this jury who are also looking very carefully at the financial aspects. They're very clearly keyed into this. You see jurors taking notes on this. They're tracking this evidence very clearly.
Yeah, good point. McConney, the Trump Organization accountant, the controller, described the chaotic inner workings of the Trump Organization after the former president took office in terms of handling the accounting procedures. What's your takeaway from that?
Well, I mean, it really has to do with, it is the building blocks. I mean, obviously the defense at various points is going to go, the connection is not made here. So, I mean, these accounting procedures obviously have to have resonance, especially for the financial people and also for the lawyers. We've got two lawyers on this jury, remember. We've got two lawyers, two financial people, two engineers. So very smart jury, really trying to put these pieces together here and trying to kind of go, okay, what is the hierarchy? What is the structure of this organization? Who's aware of what and who is responsible for what? And I think Deborah Tarasov just said, look, Donald Trump is not going to sign a check that he doesn't approve of, and he voids checks periodically. So there's a lot that's being built up by the prosecution, especially about, even though it's a lot of chaos, it's a big organization, there still is a lot of control on top by Donald Trump.
Yeah, very important developments indeed. Richard Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.